We are entering Season 3 of The Bad Batch, with a major character death at the end of last season. Is that it for the rest of Clone Force 99? And what about Little Omega? These characters are, so far, not shown in any other Star Wars media, but maybe it's not yet time to give up hope. Spoilers ahead for all 3 seasons of Star Wars The Bad Batch. We saw episodes 1 through 8 of the new season, and while we won't be spoiling it episode by episode, we will mention a couple major beats in support of this theory. You've been warned.
Hold on! We've got troopers up top.
We know from Star Wars Rebels that Rex lives on well beyond this time, along with Wolf and Gregor. Check. But what about Hunter, Wrecker, Crosshair, Echo, and Omega? As expected in press interviews with the cast and crew, we didn't get definitive answers. But while ultimate fates aren't set, it's clear this is the end for now.
We knew season 3 was going to be our final season before we even started writing it, so we were able to do this rare thing in this business where we could wrap it up the way we wanted to. I'll say that we are wrapping up the show the way we wanted to wrap it up.
And at least from what we heard, it seems that Tech is most likely gone for good on top of that.
The way that I think of it is that Tech is gone. His ending was heroic and admirable and everything that a clone would want. And so I don't think I'd want anything less than that for each and every one of them. But as far as the fulfillment of his life, he had a pretty fantastic finish, pretty spectacular, that also was heroic and was successful. Unlike, for instance, like Fives, who was heroic, but he just made it that close to actually getting it all the way. So his end was tragic, but also heroic. Tech was the lucky one, in a sense.
D. Bradley Baker has a point. A good death is not a bad thing. From a character and story perspective, that is. Reversing that might not feel as good as you think it would. He seems to make a strong point against a revival. He also said he would theoretically want that level of a good death for the rest of the Bad Batch, so take that to mean what you will. The jury is still out on whether the other 4 members of Clone Force 99 make it out alive or not. It's not made clear early on that they're hurtling toward doom or that they can keep going. None of them have appeared in any media outside the Bad Batch, may I remind you, so while it's technically possible they'll be helping Old Man Rex in Star Wars Rebels days, or in the background on the Outer Rim somewhere, or maybe disguised leading lives under assumed identities like a couple other clones, there's really very little evidence to support that. The text would probably be more likely to support the clones falling somewhere heroically rather than having happy endings. But this is a galaxy built on hope. You never know how things might end up. This story is definitely ending, but that doesn't mean one way or another that it's their final story.
I'm glad that these characters in this story have a landing, that they have a finish, that they're fully telling the story that they started, and they're bringing it all together, and they're saying, this is the story. Like they were able to do finally, luckily, with the Clone Wars.
D. Bradley Baker could certainly still be around to voice other clone characters, at least.
But my consolation is that these stories, they can go forwards, but they can also go sideways and they can go backwards. I think we know that Rex makes it all the way to Endor. So there's a clone story that doesn't end. And as far as the rest of them, there's a lot of clones that you don't know what happened to. Cody walked away. What's with Cody? I mean, maybe we'll see, maybe we won't. I'm not saying. I would love to see stories about Rex and Ahsoka. I would love to see, how it plays out with Asajj Ventress. And maybe she's working with, these are just combinations that are interesting to me that I would love to see.
There are plenty of beloved clones remaining and plenty of eras to cover. And hey, did he mention Ventress? Does that mean she lives past this season of The Bad Batch? That this is not a retelling of Dark Disciple and indeed a world in which she persists as a character? Note to self, make that video. But he's right. Cody is unaccounted. Rex definitely has a story with Ahsoka. Even if the Bad Batch itself perishes, there are still plenty of clones in the galaxy. We are going to talk about the Omega of it all now, and yes, there is a major character spoiler for her in just a few seconds, so please judge your preparedness for that while I vamp. When we left her, she was imprisoned by the Empire on Tantus, where clones were being experimented upon. In typical Omega fashion, she sees the good in people around her and tries to guide even jerks toward their better inclinations. We discover through the course of Season 3 that Omega is more important than she seems, which actually seems about right. Nala Se works hard to prevent the Empire from reading Omega's blood sample because she knows Omega has a high M count, and they're in the early stages of gathering beings with high M counts for nefarious purposes. I'm not going to get into it, I think you know, but the point is, Omega has a high M count. This is incredibly strange given her status as an unaltered clone of Jango Fett. It's not clear how this is possible or what it even implies.
Well, whenever you're talking about M count, we know fans are going to immediately, perk up and be curious about it. But Omega's connection to M count is a little different. So I will just say that we're going to explore more as to what that means throughout Season 3, and there will be some answer, but not everything is as it seems. I'll say that.
She doesn't know what M count is. This is like a whole, what? What is this? So it's an exciting piece of the answer that she's seeking, and there is a bit of a journey that she has to go through to be able to answer it.
I also asked that as Boba Fett is also an unaltered clone of Jango and genetically like Omega, is it possible he has a high M count?
Everyone's different. And not even just as a coy, misdirect answer, but I mean, that is one of the interesting themes of this show and of this season, that this family, the Bad Batch, including Omega, they're all clones, but they're all so different.
Ah, damn it. Well, I tried. Whatever the high M count leads to, it's novel. That means Omega is not a typical youngling candidate, and her high M count will contribute to something slightly different than that path, like the showrunner said. Beyond that, all we can say is that her high M count is notable and coveted. And while we don't have confirmation Omega will live or die by the end of the show, having an exceptional expression of Force capability does lend to the idea of continued adventures to explore that idea, along with the Empire seeking to capture her, much like our old friend Grogu. Speaking of, we mentioned in our video about Grogu's future that it was highly unlikely Disney would kill off a main character who is a child in a property children also watch, and that point also applies here. We think odds are very high Omega's story will stretch beyond the Bad Batch. Omega is about the same age as Boba Fett and could appear as an older character down the line in the same eras her long-lost brother lives in. She could potentially even appear in live action in a Dave Filoni project, but when has Dave Filoni, chief creative officer of Lucasfilm, ever put one of his animated characters in live action?
Let's find out.
Keep your lid on, Chop.
What was first just a dream has become a frightening reality.
Yeah, it's probably not off the board. Michelle Ang, the actor who voices Omega, likes the possibility too.
I primarily am a live action actor, so I've been saying, throw me into live action, Filoni, I can do it. Whether I get to play Omega or someone else, I would love to continue being an artist in this universe. And it would be really cool to do either Omega again in a different form or be a live action character.
While the answer to whether this is the end for Omega and the clones isn't 100% clear this early on, we'd bet Omega has a future with Star Wars, and so does D. Bradley Baker as the clones. But maybe not the exact clones from Clone Force 99. You can find out for yourself. The Bad Batch is airing on Disney Plus now. Thanks for watching. I'm Kim Horcher, and for more Star Wars, here's why The Mandalorian's next adventure won't be on Disney+. So check that out, and don't forget to follow and subscribe to IGN wherever you like to watch.